Welcome to Under the Rug at Work, where I shine light on things that are normally swept under the rug. Today, I'm chatting with Megan Smith about injury prevention. Megan is a work health and safety specialist with over a decade's experience across a number of industries. And thank you so much for joining me, Megan.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
So, can you share with us a little bit about your background and experience? It's super interesting.
Yeah, of course. So I guess I my background originally is a return to work claims manager, injury manager, which started in possibly about years and years ago. My first gig was pretty much a return to work or a claims manager where I managed workers' comp claims for an insurer. And that kind of started my career of understanding about return to work. Then you move into working for a business and being an injury management advisor, supporting from, understanding the claims and how the decisions are made. And then, moving into more of an injury management space. And then now I sort of flowed into injury prevention. So I've had obviously a lot of exposure around a lot of the three topics, as in, return to work, injury prevention, injury management. And so now I focus a bit more on the prevention side of things, and that's where I'm at right now.
And that's really where we need to start, right? So we don't have to manage injuries and we don't have to manage return to work either, because they get quite tricky, don't they?
Yeah. And I think it's not meant to be complex, but I guess, dealing with legislation, dealing with what we should and shouldn't do, and dealing with what we should and shouldn't say makes the whole scenario very complex for everyone involved. Because back when I first started, it was quite, well, not simple, but it still was, there was only a couple of people sort of involved in the whole process. Whereas now, we've got return to work coordinators, then you've got rehab providers, then you've got, you might have an occupational therapist, you might have like extras. So there's so many people that are involved in the whole process. And so now it is quite complex to understand, where we're at and what we're meant to be doing.
Yeah. Can you share some of the benefits of being proactive about preventing injuries?
Look, I mean, everyone talks about early intervention. They use the words early intervention all the time. But what does early intervention actually mean? I mean, I think, when people get injured at work and early intervention is, oh, we've got to make sure that they come back to work so it doesn't affect our lost time injury stats. Or we find them some kind of suitable duties, which means, licking envelopes or something that makes them come back to work. But in the scheme of things, it's that person has suffered an injury. We need to get them back to work so they feel part of the group, part of the team. And the sooner that somebody comes back to work, the benefits of the long-term effects for the business, for the person, is, the stats say for themselves. The longer that somebody's off work, it impacts everyone that's involved. So the benefits about people coming back to work, obviously sooner rather than later, is not only financial, but it's obviously the impact of the safety culture and the business, and how they look after their people when an unfortunate incident's happened.
Yeah. And let's dive into it a little bit, just so that we know what we're trying to prevent. What normally happens when someone's injured at work?
Look, in my experience, obviously, I've had it from both a claims agent, from an employer, and from a safety professional and return to work aspect. What normally happens is when somebody gets injured at work, operations staff really struggle to know what to do. And I think this is where not only return to work people, but safety professionals and operations people need to understand their roles and responsibilities. When what happens, what do we do, who does what? And it's, in every workplace, it's obviously ideal that we have all of these things in writing. But if you're not used to practicing it, then it kind of goes out the window, and then panic happens when somebody is like, oh God, what do we do? So, it's the best form is to actually, so that operations people know what to do. And they're supported. That worker didn't mean to get injured. I'm assuming, on most cases, nobody wants to come to work to get injured. So they need to be supported and have the support of the business, or to know that they're not on a lone island and that they actually are going to be supported returning back to work, and what means for their pay, what means for their, for their recovery, all of those things that nobody really talks about until it sort of happens. It's like first things first is when somebody gets injured, how am I going to get paid? How do I get, obviously if they're the main breadwinner, all of those things that sort of happen when somebody does unfortunately have an injury at work.
And there's so many uncertainties. And I find, as you said, if we're not prepared, then we either do nothing or we stick our foot in our mouth or do something that, was completely unintended. So,
Yeah.
yeah, having that early prevention prevents injuries from
Mm.
happening and then prevents the need for any of this sort of thing as well. But as you said, people really don't know what to do. So, what's your advice when it comes to best practice for injury prevention? How can employers stop and managers stop injuries from occurring?
Well, I think, we always talk about, oh, have you done a risk assessment, or have you done a procedure, or have you, all the paperwork side of things to tick the box to say, oh, that person knows how to drive a forklift, or that person know, but do they? Do they know how to do that? We can tick and flick every box and say, yep, that's great. As safety people, right? Our business is safe. We know what to do. But I think in reality, if you're not involved, or if you're not privy to these situations, then you're not going to know what to do. And so it's unfortunate that, say, in a small business where it doesn't happen very often, but when something does happen, the business is like, far out. What do we do here? And I'm fully supportive of training and education for employers, and that's part of sort of my background is business partnering and supporting the businesses so that they do understand. I keep it very, very simple so that then operational leaders know what to do, know what forms to fill out, know what words to say. No, and I think it's key. It's absolutely key to making sure that your people are supported so they know what to do. It's very simple. What to do if this happens, even if it's a flow chart,
Yep.
even if it's a call this number, even if it's something that's sitting on someone's desk to go, oh, I know what to do if Billy's chopped his finger off. It's
Mhm.
right. What do we do? Call this number, fill out this form, do that. It's very simple. You don't need a 50-page document to go, oh, can I find this procedure that's over there and it's in the shelf? No one's going to do that. No one's going to do that. It's just, and that I think for me, that's a good safety culture is when your team know what to do. They know where to go. They know what medical center to take that person to. They know everything about, managing that injury, or when somebody's, unfortunately been injured at work. It's key.
Mm. And just to your earlier point too, making sure people are across processes, like having a really good induction program is so important because it help them navigate what's
Yeah.
happening, what's new to the workplace, or it's a completely new workplace to them. So make sure that they know where things are, that they know where the first
Mhm.
aid kit is, that they know how to get from A to Z and to manage the workplace as best as they can. And talking to people as well and making sure, as you said, having a great safety culture and having the ability and the psychological safety for people to say, hey, this doesn't feel right, or I think something's missing here, or there was almost a near miss that happened here as well. Like being able to have those conversations, because employers can't be everything for everyone. They can't know everything. So
No.
we need to rely on
Mm.
workers to be able to share some of those things with us as well.
I mean, you're spot on. It is a worker's workplace. I mean, they don't want their mates injured either. It's not only about the injury, it's about what sort of things are they, and what's their behaviors at work that lead them to, it's always people that walk past certain behaviors and don't call it out. And that's when you find that either they're too scared or they don't feel confident about raising something. And I think it's healthy for someone to raise something and come up with a solution. Then that's how you're going to get a better culture when talking about certain things, because their mate is going to get injured if they don't raise it, or it's like, oh, but that's what we've always done, or those type of things. So I can count on my hand many employers that I've worked at that unfortunately don't have a basic induction program for people when they come to work. And you would think, like you've just mentioned, to say, that's so important. And it is literally, when I come to work here, what do I do?
Yeah.
These are all the lists that, that you would think it would be quite simple, but for some, they just it's not on their radar to think that that's important. So that's just, it's part of those things that you're educating employers and businesses about. Hey, have you thought about that? What do you think about, have we done a drill? Do people know where to go when they're on fire? How many first aiders do you have here? Like it rolls off the tongue because this is our, this is our world, right? But as an operator, they're like, no, I just need to drive the forklift, or I need to drive the truck, or I need to do these things. They don't automatically think about, drills and first aiders and what to do in those scenarios. So it's a kind of different mindset. That's all.
And there's so much to think about and do when you're an employer or a manager. You're trying to keep the doors open. You're trying to keep the work going. You're trying to get business in. You're, trying to get through the long list of things to do. And sometimes it's best to reach out to someone else who lives and breathes this work as you do. So if people want to learn more about you, what's the best way to connect?
Well, I am actively on LinkedIn, so I actively like, listening to people and talking about various safety scenarios that go on. Obviously, I've been in many industries, so to connect with me, it's I'm out and about in Brisbane, so I love it, and I love aligning myself to other safety people and safety professionals, also businesses, because you can always learn from different businesses. But yeah, it's more of aligning. I'm definitely in the Women in Safety, connection group, and that's that's important for some of us that are women in this field. We've obviously got to try and find connect ourselves to others that can align with those the same values as what we have. But yeah, just to basically reach out, and I'm definitely open to supporting wherever I can.
Fantastic. And I'll include a link to that in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, Megan, for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.